Hey, well, welcome everybody. I didn't know if you knew those fun facts or not, but yes, Kurt Cobain was murdered. But anyway, we're grateful you're here. Welcome to Real Life, whether you're inside or outside. And I want to welcome everybody over in Simi and Lancaster and everybody watching online. Summer is finally here. We just passed summer solstice, which means every day is getting shorter now from here on out. So enjoy it while you can. How many of you are excited about summer? Let me hear from you. Show of hands. Okay. So, there's so many great things coming up. Maybe you're excited about vacation. Maybe it's, the hot days. You can hang out by the pool or out to the beach. Maybe it's cookouts, and you're excited about that. I mean, some of you are excited because you're going to go camping, and that means you're insane. Whatever it is that you love to do, summer is such a fun time for all of us. We all enjoy all the fun things about summer. And there's a lot of good stuff going on at Real Life this summer. Make sure that you keep an eye on your campus and their particular calendar and all the stuff that they have going on, from camp to movie nights and cookouts and prep for the story coming up in the fall. It's really going to be a fun summer, and I hope you're enjoying it already. We're kicking off a brand new series today, and I want to just give you 3 images here and see if you can figure out what they have in common. Okay, here they are. We have your diet, we have Bitcoin, and we have the Raiders. Okay. You may know what they have in common. They're all hopeless, okay? So, I'm sorry. It's time for a Raider dig. It just is. But you know what I mean. I mean, there's these moments that we think the diet's going to work, or we think this investment's going to work, or we think our particular team is going to work, and then it just begins to fall apart, and they get a little bit hopeless. And so what I want to talk to you about for a few moments here as we kind of set up this series and over the next few weeks as we kind of just tease this out a little bit, and that is the idea that life without hope, it's really rough. In fact, I read this from John Maxwell. Take a look at what he says here. It's been said that a person can live 40 days without food, 4 days without water, and 4 minutes without air, but only 4 seconds without hope. Now, I realize that's a bit trite, but nonetheless, hope is a powerful thing. I mean, it's the fuel to keep us moving forward when times get tough. It brings enthusiasm for the future, and sometimes it even supplies enough of the reasons to live. In fact, take a look at what Solomon said about this in the book of Proverbs. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. Now, here's what I want us to think about for just a second here. Even though it's summer, a lot of us feel like it's winter in our soul. I mean, for some of us right now, we are feeling this dread of every day at work, and you are just hopeless in your career. For some of you, you're feeling like, I should be more excited the kids are home for the summer, but yet it's just constant arguing, and I'm so bored, and who's going to watch them, and who's going to take them here, and you're just almost depressed about it. For some of you, you're in a relationship that you don't think is going anywhere, but you've already invested so much time, you're kind of am I at the point of no return, and you feel aimless and hopeless. For some of you, you haven't been in a relationship for so long, and you're wondering, what is it about me or about them or my standards? And you're beginning to wonder, is time passing you by? And you feel hopeless. For some of you, you feel like it's the economy or the writer's strike or gas prices or inflation, and you're just overwhelmed. For some of you, it's an addiction that you're battling, and you think there's just no way out. For maybe it is a weight issue, and a diet just never seems to work, and you just feel stuck, and you feel hopeless. A few months ago, I met a man that's part of our church, and he was telling me the horrific story of his son, was a teenager, wanted to just have a little bit of help with his anxiety, and he bought what he thought was a Xanax from a friend, somebody he thought he knew, off of Snapchat. And it ended up being fentanyl, and it killed him. And his dad, in an effort to try to warn people, put together this documentary called Dead on Arrival that just details the story of this fake pill that ended up being the thing that killed his son. And based upon where we are in Southern California and the information in which we're getting and the stats in which we're hearing, odds are everybody here, everybody watching, has been affected somehow by fentanyl. Whether it was personally or whether it was somebody in your life that developed a horrific addiction or even lost their life. And it makes you feel hopeless. For some of you, it's an issue with your faith, where you're feeling like, I just don't know how to go to the next level. Other people seem to have experiences with God I never get. Why is it their prayers seem to get answered? Why are they so emotional in service? Is there something that they're getting in their seat that I'm not getting in mine? Why does the Bible come alive to them but not to me? And you just feel hopeless. And so even though it's summer and even though we're excited about all the fun things that summer brings, the reality is for a lot of us, there's a part of our soul, part of our life that feels like we are without hope. And that kind of a feeling makes the heart sick. Take a look at this picture of a gas gauge here. I mean, we use this all the time to figure out, how far we can go with our car and all of that. But I want you to think about this in terms of if it's a hope gauge. All right, so some of you, you know what, you're just the energetic, enthusiastic, extroverted kind of person. The glass is always full and running over and everything's wonderful. And those of us that aren't, we really hate you, okay? I mean that in love, but it's kind of painful for us to watch you, be so excited. But the reality is you're full of hope, and that's good for you. But for some of us, we're kind of like 3/4 full, right? We're just a little bit down and we could use a little top off, and maybe that's why you're here today. Maybe, though, you're at about half full. It was a long school year, and maybe you're just stuck at work right now, and you're overwhelmed by culture and the world. But maybe you're at like a quarter full of hope, and you're struggling, and you've got mental health issues or general anxiety disorder, and you're just trying to keep it together before it drops off the edge into full-blown depression. And some of you might even be feeling today that you're at that empty mark, where you're just beginning to sputter and not even sure if you're going to make it. And you're beginning to think about not just depression, but suicidal ideation and wondering if you've got anything left. And you're wondering, is there any hope out there for you? Well, this is what's so awesome about Jesus. Because Jesus came to bring hope. Not condemnation, not judgment, not more rules or laws or a religion, but he came to bring hope. Hope that things could be right between us and God. Hope that there was a better day coming. Hope that you could find joy beyond your circumstances. In fact, one of our favorite verses to read around here is this: I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. Not have it kind of halfway full. Not have it and just be kind of mildly entertained, but to have full hope and joy, life to the full. And the reality is a lot of us, we just don't feel that way. So, even though it's summer, and even though the sun's out, and even though June gloom is pretty much gone, for all of us who need hope, we're going to spend the next 6 weeks walking through 6 miracles that Jesus did that brought hope to people. And they brought so much hope that we're still talking about these miracles today. And we feel so passionately about what it is we're going to talk about over the next few weeks. We want everybody to hear it and everybody to experience it. So I'm just telling you, I realize you're going to be traveling and you got things to do and all that. Do not miss one of the services, whether you watch it during one of our service times, online or in person, or you watch it a little bit later. And so we're going to make it really simple for you. Not only do we have services on Thursday night and Sunday morning, but we're also offering those services online Thursday night at 7 or Sunday morning at 8:30, 10, and 11:30. And then we're going to offer it on demand after that final service throughout the week. But we're going to do a special curated service on Tuesdays at noon Pacific time, so that you can, on your lunch break, gather some people around, watch it, talk about it, and get kind of a little burst of hope right there during the work week when you need it. And so that's going to start this coming week on Tuesdays at noon, and you can just take a little break during lunch and enjoy that moment and even interact with a pastor there online as we go through that service. So don't miss out on this summer of hope as we launch into this over the next few weeks. So with that being said, we're going to jump in today with this idea. Okay? How do you get the hope that Jesus offered into your life? Anybody ever use StubHub or Ticketmaster or any of those kind of outlets before to get tickets? I recently bought some tickets on StubHub, and I downloaded the app, and I went to the app, and they weren't there. And then I realized, they don't give you the tickets until like a few days before the actual event. And so I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and about a week out, I got an email saying, hey, your tickets are coming, just check the app. So I checked the app, and it's not there. And then a few days later, I check the app again, and the app says, check your email. So I go to the email, and the email says, check the app. And I'm like, this is just some kind of bizarre Bermuda Triangle kind of moment here. I'm stuck in this Twilight Zone thing of I can't find my tickets. I know the tickets are out there. I know I purchased the tickets. I just can't get access to the tickets. Now, just so for those of you that are praying and fasting for me and the tickets, it came through, all right? But it was in that moment that I knew it was out there, I just didn't know how to get it to my account. And I think when it comes to the hope that Jesus offers, it's not that we don't believe it, we just don't know how to access it. We just don't know how to make it real for us. It seems to be real for other people. It seems to be real for your really Christian friend, but for you, you're thinking, I don't know if I've ever seen that. And so that's what I want to talk about today. And we're going to see that in the beginning of Jesus' public ministry, where he begins to no longer just be the kid that grew up in the carpenter's house, but he begins to be the guy that is doing miracles and talking about God and professing to be God in the flesh. And we're going to read from one of the authors of one of the 4 biographies about Jesus. His name was Mark. And what's great about Mark is that he was a guy that wasn't yet a believer until after Jesus was crucified and came back from the dead. And most historians and theologians believe that Mark accepted Jesus and belief in Jesus when the disciples preached about him on Pentecost, which was 50 days after Jesus' resurrection. Peter rolls out and he teaches everybody about Jesus, and people go, oh my goodness, this was the Son of God. What must we do to be saved? 3,000 people, said yes to Jesus, and the church was born. Mark was one of those guys. After that, Mark began to interview people that were close to Jesus, like Peter and Barnabas and all these different people that traveled with Jesus. And then he himself begins to travel with Paul. And he writes down all of these accounts of Jesus, and he actually gets his biography about Jesus out first. And it comes out first, and the other guys will use it as kind of a template for when they write theirs, but he's so excited to tell us about Jesus, he can't wait. And that's why his is the shortest of the 4 biographies about Jesus. Some of you are thinking, yep, that's the one I want to read, the shortest one. Okay? It's only 16 chapters, and it moves really quick. And he uses this word immediately a lot because he's like moving from one scene to the next. It just feels so fast-paced. And he starts right off, not with, there were, shepherds in the fields by night, or there was a baby born in a nativity. Jesus is alive, he's an adult, and he is moving. And that's how Mark starts. And the very first thing he begins to tell us about is how Jesus begins to bring hope to the people that are around him. So here's what we're going to see. We're going to see not just how Jesus brought hope, but how you and I can receive that hope. So let's take a look at this in Mark chapter 1. We're going to start with verse 16. Here's what Mark writes. As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Okay, so this has probably happened time and time and time again, because this is a small-knit community. They're all kind of living around each other. The same guys go out every day to fish, and Jesus has probably interacted with Simon and Andrew, and he knows them, he knows their family, and they've probably heard him teach on the seashore before, and now Jesus walks by and he says, come follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people. In other words, instead of just doing a job where you're just begging to catch a few fish, to feed your family for the day, and going out and doing it all over again, I want to send you out on an eternal mission to change the lives of people. And at once they left their nets and they followed him. Now, when he'd gone a little farther, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat. They're doing the same thing, and they're preparing their nets. And without delay, he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him. Now, when I get to heaven, I'd like to talk to Zebedee and say, did you like Jesus at that moment, right? He just took your 2 sons to follow him, and you're out there stuck with the nets and all of that, but that's another story. But anyway, Jesus says, follow me, and they all go. These dudes are just running the family business, and then Jesus gives them another purpose. And here's that purpose. Let's go bring hope to others. So here's the big thought I want you to think about today. One of the best ways you can get hope in your life is to give hope to others, to be a hope broker, where you get more concerned about bringing hope to other people than you do about how much hope you have, because that seems to be the way to get it. One of our pastors here on staff, this great guy by the name of Kevin Pisano, he has been in ministry for a long time, and he loves to ride dirt bikes. And he was telling me this story the other day of a few months ago. He was getting his dirt bike, and he got it all fixed, and he's put it in the back of his truck, and he's at this shop where they fix the bikes. And this guy is sitting there at the shop because he's getting his bike fixed, and he yells out to Kevin, hey, you be careful out there. And Kevin goes, oh, I'm good. And this guy goes, yeah, I'm not. Kevin goes, what do you mean? I just found out my wife's got cancer. Well, this was like a light bulb moment for Kevin, because Kevin's wife has dealt with cancer. And Kevin stopped what he was doing and walked over to him and said, tell me all about it. And this guy just started talking. They became fast friends, and a few weeks go by, and this guy says to Kevin, I don't think I realized how much I needed a friend. And he looks at Kevin and says, I think God put you in my life. That's just being open and available. Who needs hope today? And maybe that's just taking a little bit longer to listen when you say, how you doing? And hear what it is they have to say. I think about all of the light bulb walls we have at all of our locations right now. About a year ago, a lot of us took those light bulbs and we wrote names on those bulbs, and we went and we screwed them into the wall to light it up as if to say, these are the people I want to bring hope to. And I would just ask you, if you did that, what have you done over the last year to bring hope to that person? Have you prayed for them? Have you invited them over for dinner? Have you invited them to a church service? What have you done to bring hope to somebody else? Are you a hope broker? Here's the cool thing about being a part of what's going on around here. If you participated in our Real Hope Giving Initiative just a few months ago, you've already contributed to bringing hope to other people. In fact, you've been participating in bringing the gospel into prisons, to retiring medical debt here in California, to help rescuing kids from human trafficking, for helping kids who are aging out of the foster system to have resources to go to school and to be encouraged in their journey in that process. In fact, if you go to our website, you can read so much more about all the funds that have gone towards those initiatives. That is being a hope broker by investing in that. You are giving hope, and you'll receive hope in the process. One person is excited about that. All right. Now, it doesn't stop there. Mark has got a lot to say, so he keeps moving on, all right? After that, they go to Capernaum. And when the Sabbath came, Jesus went into the synagogue and began to teach. And the people were amazed at his teaching, because he taught them as one who had authority, not as their teachers of the law. In other words, the teachers of the law in those days would kind of teach like they were the God police, the morality police. And they'd read something and they'd condemn everybody who wasn't following it like they were. And Jesus read the scriptures entirely different. He would share them in a way that he brought his words of life to them, not just the words of the law. Mark continues. Just then, a man in their synagogue who was possessed by an impure spirit cried out. In other words, this guy had gotten in the church. Everybody's welcome, right? But he just can't stand it anymore. And he starts screaming out, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are. You're the Holy One of God." And Jesus looks at him and he says, "Be quiet." And then he says, "Come out of him." And the impure spirit shook the man violently, and then came out of him with a shriek. I mean, don't you think if that happened in here right now, we'd all wake up and pay attention, and you'd wonder where that thing went? You know, it came. Don't you wonder that thing came out of that guy? Where'd he go now? You know, is he going home with me? I'm seeing this in the movies. He's going to be under the bed. I know that. Well, this is this incredible moment where we read this kind of thing and we forget that that stuff happens. We don't see it a lot, and I think part of that is because we're so used to people living in that, and they don't really, people that are possessed, the evil spirit inside of them has no reason to freak out like that unless they come face to face with Jesus or someone in the name of Jesus. And a lot of times in our culture, they just live right there amongst us. And what I see in this moment is, if you want to find hope like this individual found, you got to get face to face with Jesus. And I know over the course of this summer, you got a lot of stuff to do and a lot of places to go, but let me just ask you, are you going to spend any time with Jesus? Are you going to carve out a little bit of time in the morning just to talk to Jesus? Are you going to use your YouVersion Bible app and just read a little bit about Jesus? Are you going to make church a priority so that you can be around Jesus? One of our church planters planted a church out in Thousand Oaks. His name's Mark McKinney. He's a great guy. He's spoken here before. He told me just the other day, texted me, he said, I was doing a funeral out here in Thousand Oaks, and I met this woman who starts telling me her life story. And she starts talking about how she lives up in Santa Clarita, and she had gone through a really difficult time, did not go to church anywhere, and drove by Real Life Church and thought, what do I got to lose? And so she wandered in, and she met Jesus through that experience. And she's been there for now 6 years, and it's utterly changed her life. And friends, I just really feel like we need more and more places that do that. Because when you get face to face with Jesus, it brings hope in your life. Now, this story continues. Look what happens next. The people were all so amazed that they asked each other, what is this? A new teaching and with authority? He even gives orders to impure spirits, and they obey him. And news about Jesus spread quickly all over the whole region of Galilee. Now, here's what's going on here, is that out of this, they create more and more places for people to meet Jesus, which is exactly what we need to do if we're going to be hope brokers. We got to create more places for people to experience and meet Jesus. Now, can I just talk to you like your pastor for a second and speak to your hearts, especially those of you that call Real Life home? 8 months ago, we launched an initiative called Real Hope to bring Real Hope to California and plant 30 churches in the state of California within the next 3 years. We wanted to raise $10 million, and we had $5 million of commitments come in. And since then, out of that $5 million of commitments, $1 million has actually come in. And as a result of that, we have planted 10 churches, which means we are a third of the way there. But we have far to go when it comes to the fundraising for it. I want to just tell you the urgency of this matter. There are people in our state that desperately need to know the hope of Jesus, and they are waiting for us to create places for them to meet him. Now, I know you're thinking, oh, there's churches everywhere. Friends, there are not, especially in this state, and especially churches that are open to anybody. And so I want to ask you, will you join us in this initiative? Now, here's a little graphic I want to put up here on the screen. I want you to take a look at this here. And I'm going to explain this for just a second here. Some of you are way ahead of me already. Now, if you know me at all, you know that I view drinking coffee as a spiritual experience. It starts early and it goes late, okay? And I am all in to great coffee. I love my coffee. And I'm a purist. I like good coffee. I like black coffee. I don't put anything in it. It is just like the way Jesus drank it, okay? And so I just love it. But I got to wonder, If God ever looks at my life and asks, do you love coffee more than me? To which I'd say, no, of course not. Well, let me tell you what I'm about, Rusty. I'm about creating more places for people to meet my son. Do you love coffee more than you love planting churches? Do you know what the average American spends on coffee every month? It's $40. I thought it was a lot more than that. But this must be Midwest prices, okay? So West Coast, $300, okay? Let's just be, very, very small-minded in this. $40 a month in coffee. I want to challenge you with this. Would you spend more each month on church planting than you do on coffee? $41. I want to just challenge you like this. Today, would you set up on the QR code a recurring gift to Real Hope for $40, $41 a month, and set it up and keep it for 3 years? You know what will happen if 1,000 of us do that? Friends, there were 6,000 here last weekend. You know what happened if 1,000 of us did that over 3 years? We'd raise over $4 million towards church planting. Friends, most of us spend that kind of money on streaming services we don't even use, on dinner, on lunch. Here's what I want to ask you. Would you give more to church planting than you do to coffee? Just for 3 years. Because then you have created places for people to meet Jesus. Like the church that we helped plant up in the Bay Area and is rounding up backpacks for kids in impoverished areas for school. Like the church that we helped start down in Temecula that's meeting the needs of young families who are discovering Jesus for the first time. Like a church that we just started down in LA a few months ago. And I was talking to the pastor the other day, and he said, we did a baby dedication. And I look over on the stage, and Marlon Wayans is dedicating his baby. He says, this is crazy who we're reaching out here. We've got ex-Lakers, we've got movie stars, we've got musicians. Friends, I'm telling you, when we create churches in California, it changes the state of California, which changes the country, which changes the world. And you can do that for more than a cup of coffee. So, would you do that today? Would you go on the QR code? Would you go on our app? And would you set up a recurring gift for over $40? Maybe you spend more than that on coffee. That's between you and Jesus, but let's start with 40 and think about what we could do. It's that important. Mark wraps this up. As soon as they left the synagogue, they went with James and John to the home of Simon and Andrew. Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they immediately told Jesus about her. And so he went to her, he took her hand, and he helped her up. And the fever left her, and she began to wait on them. Isn't that amazing? She's sick in bed with a fever. Jesus heals her. First thing she does, who's hungry? I got to help somebody out. And that evening, after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. And the whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He drove out many demons. And he wouldn't even let the demons speak because they knew who he was. He was holding that nugget for later. Here's how you bring hope. Here's how you find hope. You serve like Jesus. As soon as this woman is healed, she starts helping other people. Friends, those of us that are here that have found Jesus, who have given our lives to Jesus, been baptized into Jesus, you have had your sins washed away. You've been given the gift of the Holy Spirit. You have been given the gift of eternity with Jesus forever. It is time for us to give back. It is time for us to serve others. It is time to stop showing up to church to wonder, what am I going to get out of this today? And did it meet my needs today? But rather, who can I serve? How can I help out? Where can I volunteer? Who can I help? How can I give hope to somebody else? If you've been around here very long at all, you've probably heard us talk about the incredible organization called Convoy of Hope. Every time there's some kind of a national tragedy or a cataclysmic event like a hurricane or a tsunami or maybe a war going on over in the Ukraine, we contact Convoy of Hope and we send them resources because they always have boots on the ground to bring hope to people in need. They do an incredible job of giving people food and water and clothing and Jesus. The founder of that organization is a guy by the name of Hal Donaldson. And I recently heard his story. Hal was one of 5 kids. He had 4 siblings. And one night, while he was very young, his parents went out on a little date night for mom and dad, and they got a sitter. Sitter shows up, mom and dad leave, and after they leave, they're in a horrible car accident. Dad dies. Mom's in the hospital, critical. The police show up to the house, the babysitter's there with the kids in the house, and suddenly people from around the community began to descend upon the house to figure out how to help, what's going on. And the police officer looks at this crowd of people and they said, these 5 kids need somewhere to stay. And somebody in the back of the crowd raises their hand and says, we'll take them. This family of 4 that lived in a mobile home said, you can live with us. And they took care of them while mom slowly started getting better. When she finally got out of the hospital, she had cast all over her body and was confined to a wheelchair and slept in a recliner, and they didn't know where they were going to go and how she would take care of these kids. So that family that took the kids in, they said, you can stay with us. And they got her a recliner, and they found a way to, kind of let her live there. And they lived there for months. Until finally they were able to get out. And now she was desperate to find work and wasn't sure how they were going to pay the bills. And he said, I knew we grew up poor, but we were never in need. Because the people of the community and the people of the church would show up with food or with clothes or with hand-me-downs or whatever we needed. This guy grows up in this setting and decides, I want to do what that family did for me, and I want to bring hope. And he created this organization called Convoy of Hope, that is continually bringing hope to people around the globe. We get to partner with them. But I heard him say this, and I thought this was so good for all of us, because anytime any of us start thinking about the needs of other people and how we can help be a hope broker to somebody else, we immediately get overwhelmed and think, well, that's just too much. I can't do it all. And here's what he said. He said, we aren't called to take a vow of poverty, but we are called to live a life of generosity. Friends, I'm not asking you to take a vow of poverty. I'm not asking you to sell everything you own and give it all away. I'm asking you, would you be generous and take the hope you've been given and give it to somebody else? Would you take a little bit of that coffee money that you use and invest it in church planting? Would you take a little bit of that gift of joy and love that you've been given and share it with somebody else? So here's what I want you to think about. Who are you going to share hope with? When are you going to do it? And how are you going to make it happen? Start with the QR code. Do that today and see what God begins to open up in your life of how you can serve others on a daily basis. You want hope? Give hope. Let's pray together. God, thank you for in the story of Jesus, we see the way that wherever he goes, he brings hope to people. He heals people. He casts out demons. He brings about the truth that only you can give and share, and that is so evident that he's speaking your words. And God, we want to be people that don't just consume. We want to be people that don't just ask, what's for me? We want to be people that give that hope to other people, to share our resources, to advance your gospel in this state of California. God, we want to be people that invest more in you than we do in our own coffee addiction, God. God, so would you put that on our hearts? Throughout this series, God, would you help us to discover the hope that only you can give by the hope that we give to other people? God, thank you for the hope you've given us. We pray all of this in the one who gives us that hope, Jesus. Amen.